Hello, YouTube land, and welcome to another edition of Putting It Back on the Table, a Renee James production. Family, it's time to fasten those seatbelts for a thrilling adventure of home cooking, featuring culinary instructor Derek J. Snyder. I'm your host, D. Schneid, and tonight the table presents...
Basil and roasted tomato pesto, part 1, the introduction.
Hello, YouTube land. Let's talk about pesto for just a moment. I have 5 facts I would like to go over with you. First, it comes from Genoa, Italy during the Roman Empire, but has been found all over the shores of the Mediterranean stretching from Greece to Spain, and was served at almost every meal. Second, it's classified as a sauce even though it's not cooked. Not to say all sauces are cooked, but this one is chopped and smashed like a salsa, originally in a pestle and mortar, which is where it got its name from. Pestel, pesto. Third, the ingredients read more like a dressing: nuts, garlic, oil, basil, the occasional acid like citrus or vinegar, some cheese. Sounds like a nice vinaigrette if you had asked me, yet the applications are dips and spreads or to be tossed with. Fourth, like most Italian food, it can be flavored in almost any way imaginable, as long as you use nuts as the binder and oil is predominantly your liquid. Last and most assured not to be least, this most commonly to be found green glop of goodness is just delicious. That's right, I said delicious. Now, here's a little fun fact for you. There is evidence showing in certain parts of Italy, poems and sonnets had been composed about this beautiful harmony of herbed freshness. Let's just take a moment and think about that. I mean, how would you like to have been the wife of one of these gluttonous wordsmiths, only to one day happen upon their surreptitious esoteric cachet, their trove of wanted corporal lustful lyric of decocted cuisine? You wouldn't like it at all. As a matter of fact, you would march straight to the galley and take that pesto, only ground moments ago by your own blistered hands, and like the feral charlatan it is, you would throw it out to the street, to the curb, to the alley, where those mangy dogs always seem to be lurking just at the right time. No, boy, I said pesto, not presto. Wow, now that was a tangent I did not see coming. My apologies. Enough of my jibber-jabbering. Let's get started, shall we?
Basil and roasted tomato pesto, part 2, the ingredients list.
Two cloves of garlic, 2/3 cups of olive oil, 1/3 cup of pine nuts, 2 Roma tomatoes, some salt, some pepper, and 2 cups of fresh basil leaves. Oh yeah, it's a pecorino romano.
Basil and roasted tomato pesto, part 3, the preparation. Okay, so we'll start by roasting our tomatoes. So what we're going to do is take a knife and just cut them in half. Then we're going to take a spoon and gut out all the seed and all the pulp. We don't want any of that. We just want the flesh itself. Now these guys are going to go in a 400-degree oven for 40 minutes, so we want to make sure we get something that can handle them, like a casserole dish or a baking sheet, something like that. Drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil and mix them around really good to make sure they're all nice and coated. And then we're going to take a little bit of salt and dust them over the top, and then we're going to grind off a little bit of pepper, and then they're ready to go in the oven. Next, we're going to toast the pine nuts. So get your pan really hot, and then we're just going to shake them around until they start to get a little bit of color and they start to smell toasty. Should take about 30 seconds, and that's it. Alright, so now we're going to do our garlic. Just take the side of your knife and put a little pressure on them. That just helps get the skin nice and loose so you can take the skin off easy. Then once you get them peeled out, we're not going to do any kind of like a mince or a fine chop in these. We're just going to quarter them. That makes them easier to work in the food processor. Now that our tomatoes are done, we're going to pull those out and make sure they're cooked all the way through. So we'll just take a couple forks here and we'll bend it over to make sure they're soft. Then just take the fork and just grab the skin and peel the skin off. It should come off really easy as long as the tomatoes are cooked all the way through. You want to make sure you get all the skin off all the pieces. You don't want any skin to go into the pesto because skin doesn't break down, so it's just going to have little pieces of skin in it, and you don't want that. After that, we're just going to break these things up into smaller pieces to make them easier to work in the food processor.
Basil and roasted tomato pesto, part 4, the mixing.
Okay, time for the fun part, chopping it up in the food processor. We're going to start with putting the pine nuts and the garlic in there, and then we'll give that a few spins and make sure it all gets all chopped up, especially the garlic. Then we'll hit it with a little bit of salt just before we put our basil leaves in there, and we'll spin that down. Then we'll add our tomato pieces in there, and we'll get those all nicely incorporated into everything. Then we're going to take our oil and we're going to drizzle it in over the top while we spin it at the same time. Then we'll take our cheese and put that in there, give it a nice couple of spins and make sure the cheese gets nice incorporated into it. And presto, you have pesto.
Basil and roasted tomato pesto, part 5, the tasting. Yum, yum.
And how about that, family? I don't know what can get much easier these days, and think of how much fun it would be to gather around the food processor just to pulverize some items. Also, think about this. If you use fresh tomatoes and you don't roast them and you don't toast the pine nuts, well, I probably shouldn't be advertising this on a cooking show, but then there is absolutely no cooking involved whatsoever. How does that sound? And think of all the wonderful ways you can use it, like dipping your favorite vegetable sticks into it, or simply spreading it on some nice toast. Of course, my favorite is to mix a couple of spoonfuls of this glorious green cuisine with some nice hot pasta. With that said, there's really no excuse not to make it. Don't you agree? This has been Dee Schneid, once again thanking you for joining us today on another edition of Putting It Back on the Table. Goodbye, YouTube land.